Welcome to Wellness Wednesdays with Michelle. I'm your host, Michelle Hartte, your #1 nutritionist and fat loss specialist. This show is all about how to eat, move, and live to have a fit and healthy life. Today's topic is the connection between your cell phone and stress with special guest, Dr. Ross Anderson. Thanks for coming, Dr. Ross.
My pleasure indeed. Thank you so much for the opportunity to enlighten a few people.
Perfect. How are you doing today?
Fabulous.
Good.
Absolutely fabulous, yeah.
Good. So I thought I would share how we first met. Is that okay with you?
Absolutely.
Okay, so here's how we first met. So it was years ago, I think it was like 3 or 4 years ago, when in our area they were talking about putting in smart meters into our homes. And this was something new for us. And what I did was I heard some possible health implications of these smart meters being applied to our homes. So there was this one conference that was being held in Kelowna, and I thought, well, I need to find out about these smart meters because there might be something that may not be so good about it. So I went with my family, and who was there but Dr. Ross Anderson. So Dr. Ross Anderson was one of the speakers that was sharing the information about these smart meters and the electric frequency that it was throwing off that may not be so good for our bodies, and how it was linked to stress and low sleep, and how we need to take measures to possibly examine this further and possibly not even put them on our homes, or ways that we can mitigate this. I just found that so fascinating because I heard so much about cell phone usage and how, not to put it by your head, but when I started to learn about other devices, that I wanted to learn more, because really we all want to raise a fit and healthy family. So that's how we first met. So Dr. Ross shared this information that blew me away. I thought, well, I need to learn more. So I hired Dr. Ross to come into the Hartte house and check out our house to make sure that the frequencies that were in our house were going to be compatible to our bodies instead of causing stress. So that's how we met.
That is how we met, and
Yeah.
we did a fabulous inspection on your house and mitigated a lot of it.
Yeah, it was really eye-opening. The devices that he had. Actually, when you walked in the front door, I don't know if you've ever seen the movie called Ghostbusters. He reminded me of Ghostbusters. So the guys, when they come to the door with all their equipment and they go in and they take care of the ghosts. Well, I felt that he was taking care of the bad electricity so that we can be healthy. So that's what Dr. Ross reminded me of.
This is the meter that's gotten me the name Ghostbuster, because it looks a little bit like the one on the movie.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
a lot of the children, when I go into a home, they call me the Ghostbuster.
Oh my gosh.
It's quite funny. Kids have a good time with it. Yeah.
So, Dr. Ross, if you can share with our audience who you are and what you do.
Okay, so I graduated chiropractic college in 1976. It's a few years ago. And quickly realized that wasn't enough to do what I wanted to do with people, and enough to help them the way they needed to be helped. So I went into naturopathic college very quickly and graduated that in 1982. So I practiced both of those practices concurrently in Ontario until 2006. And I got interested in the electromagnetic field in the mid-late 80s. I was always very curious about sort of the fringe areas of naturopathic medicine. And so I got interested in the work that the Germans had done on what they called sick buildings, where they would have an apartment building and literally someone in every single apartment would be seriously ill.
Wow.
And so they started to research on why this was happening in certain buildings and what it was about those buildings that was different. And the conclusion was largely that the electromagnetic energy in these buildings was aberrant or bad, whatever you want to call it, and was making people sick. So I got a meter about 1987, an archaic meter now compared to what I have state-of-the-art equipment now. And I learned how to use it and did my own research, and a very specific case was given to me, and it was an 11-year-old girl who had chronic fatigue and fibromyalgia. And she had been quite ill for a couple of years. and was having a great deal of difficulty in her life and in school. And her mother brought her to me, and I worked with her for about 6 weeks, and I was getting a little bit of change, but nothing to be really happy with. So it came to me that there was something in the house that needed to be dealt with on an energetic level. And so I said to her mother, we need to go and check the house. I've got a meter, let's go and check the house. And so it was an old farmhouse built in, I think, 1870 something. And the electrical had been put in the farmhouse in the 1920s. And the house still had a fuse box, didn't even have circuit breakers. And so the electricity was coming into this house on the second floor, and where the electricity wires came to the house was about this far from where her head was when she slept at night. And with my archaic meter, I measured a very, very large magnetic field being produced by the electrical wires, and she was attempting to sleep in it, and she couldn't sleep well at all. And the meter was off the scale, way beyond anything that was measuring safe. So I said to her mother, we have to find her another bedroom. So we moved her down the hall to a spare bedroom that had none of this magnetic field because it was on the other side of the house. And in the dining room downstairs where she did her homework, she was only about 3 feet from the electrical column as it went down the side of the house to the basement to the fuse box. And so she was also being exposed when she did her homework in the evening. So we got her another place to do her homework on the other side of the house. And lo and behold, she got better without me, which is exactly what I wanted. You know, it's always been my goal is to make people self-sufficient for their health. So she got better very nicely without me, and it took about 3 weeks, and her body just completely responded. No more chronic fatigue, fibromyalgia, no more insomnia, and that was it.
Okay, so that was 3 weeks. All right.
Yep.
So Dr. Ross identified the missing piece, which is the frequency that wasn't compatible and stopping her from being healthy. Within 3 weeks, it totally turned around. So this is really something we need to pay attention to. So
I realized that probably a lot of my other patients were suffering from electromagnetic disorders. So I started making it part of my regular evaluation. And I would go into a number of their homes when I suspected it was an issue. And almost every single time there was an issue that needed to be corrected. And back then, that was before cell phones. I mean, I got my first cell phone in 1993.
Right.
You know, and I was way ahead of the curve most of the time. I always have been. You know, I found that a lot of people, once we corrected their electromagnetic issue, back then, frequently by moving them away from the source, we saw phenomenal changes in their health. So it just made sense to me to look at it with everybody. So,
oh, that's gorgeous. That's beautiful. So whoever is watching, Joanne, I know you're watching. Thanks for watching. This is really important. If you can just share this information with others as well. This is really, we need to pay attention to this, all right? So thanks for sharing. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk about, we're going to share some information about how cell phones actually get us stress. What causes the stress? So can you share the science behind that, Dr. Ross?
Well, cell phones initially were analog. Now they're all digital, but that's not the main issue. The issue is the amount of radiation that comes off of a cell phone.
Okay.
Now, I have my new fancy dancy one here that I just got the other day, which is actually a 5G phone. We'll talk about that in a few minutes. It's not operating on 5G, don't worry, and it's on airplane mode. But these things emit a significant amount of radiation, beyond what anyone could possibly imagine. Now, the issue is you can't see it, smell it, or taste it.
Yeah.
And that's the problem. So people don't think it's there because their obvious senses of sight, smell, and taste aren't picking it up.
Right.
But everybody knows, like literally, if you ask anybody, is it good to hold a cell phone up to the side of your head?
Yeah.
They know. Everybody knows it's not because they feel it. They can feel their head heat up. They get headaches. You know, if they use it in the evening a lot, they probably won't sleep well. They can't get to sleep, can't stay asleep. There are a lot of things that people connect with the use of these things. And let's face it, the goal of the industry was to get us addicted to this.
Yes,
And they have done it extremely well.
they have.
Because, I mean, you can't find anybody that doesn't have one. Actually, I actually know 3 people in Kelowna who do not own one of these. And 2 of them are my landlords upstairs where I live, which is
Wow.
quite phenomenal, really, because I live in a home with almost 0 electromagnetic radiation. And so it's very rare to find somebody that doesn't have one of these and isn't literally addicted to the technology.
So what we're doing is we're empowering you with the information so that we can actually give you practical tips to be able to de-stress your life by taking phone breaks. So we don't want to create fear. We want to actually create empowerment by sharing you that this is an actual fact. And just think about it. When you put your cell phone to your head, like, how does it feel? A lot of people talk about how their head just gets heated up. Well, it has an implication on your brain, and that gives you a sign. So we want to use technology. We don't want it to take over us. That's what this is all about. We don't want it to take over. So that's really good.
I want to talk about something very, very profound, and you know what this is, right?
Yes, a car opener.
It's a
thing.
car remote,
Car remote.
right? Okay, so. And this is true. Anyone can duplicate this.
Okay.
I've duplicated it, and you can find videos on YouTube about this.
Okay.
So if you walk away from your car
Yeah.
in a parking lot and keep clicking this, eventually you will get to a point where it doesn't work anymore because
Right.
you're too far from the car.
Yeah.
Okay. So you get to that point.
Yeah.
Now, if you put it here
Yeah.
against your chin
Yeah.
or anywhere on your head
Yeah.
and click it, it
Yeah.
will now work.
Oh, we
And
have
you
to
can
try
now
that.
walk you can now walk another 20, 30, sometimes as far as another 50 feet away from your car, and it will work by holding it against your head, because it turns the water in your brain into an antenna.
Okay, can I stop this just for a sec? Just because
Yeah.
we're talking about the antenna.
Yep.
I have clients that have rods and metal in their bodies. Are they an active antenna as well?
Absolutely.
Okay.
And so are metal
please,
fillings.
Did you hear that?
So are metal fillings.
metal fillings.
And heavy metals that have deposited in your brain.
Mm-hmm.
These all act as antennas for electromagnetic radiation.
So what that means is you're more sensitive to the electromagnetic frequencies, and that could be why you wake up with pain and have it all day. It could be because you're walking around with an antenna. So that is, please, again, share this with other people. This is important information. Thank you.
So the point I was trying to make was, if you hold this up to the side of your head, you can actually be further from the cell tower and still use your phone, because it's now using your brain and the water in your brain as an antenna. Now, the bottom line on what I just said is that that's really, really bad for your brain. And
Okay.
we now have an epidemic of brain cancer, and you're actually talking to someone who's had 2 brain cancers.
So Dr. Ross has had 2 brain cancers that he's healed himself. So could you share a bit
Well,
about that?
I
just
had them.
share about
I had
that.
them removed surgically.
Okay, so maybe share that story, because that's...
So my mother had Alzheimer's disease, and when my short-term memory started to go about 2.5, 3 years ago now, and my concentration and other things started to malfunction with my thinking processes, I assumed that I had Alzheimer's or early Alzheimer's, because my mother had it and she started about the same age that I am now. Little did I know I didn't have Alzheimer's. I had a brain tumor, which has now been removed, and was removed in January of 2019 surgically, and it was the size of a mandarin orange.
That's big.
Now, that's a fairly large tumor, if you know how big a mandarin orange is. I don't have anything that size here, but
That's big.
the hilarious thing about that mandarin orange thing is that, because that was the term that my neurosurgeon used, he said it was the size of a mandarin orange, that the dessert I got for the very first meal after my surgery was a mandarin orange on my tray. And every single meal for the next 3 days, I got a mandarin orange. It's too funny.
Wow.
Very hilarious. So the unfunny part is that the thing regrew, and I had to have the surgery again a year later. And that I'm only now, that was the end of February, so I'm 9 months out of brain surgery? Yeah.
Wow.
looking pretty good.
No, I know, and you're actually super smart. So whatever
So-
you're doing is working.
Yeah, I've done a phenomenal program, and the way I look at it is, I was given a brain tumor so that you don't have to get one.
You're learning from it. So, like, if anyone is kind of feeling the Alzheimer's effects or moving into that, this is something to explore, which is a possible brain tumor. So we're going to put Dr. Ross's information in the show notes. You'll be able to reach out to him. So he is available for those kind of questions, and please bring them on. And again, please share this. So that's really important.
The strange thing about that whole brain tumor thing, adventure I call it, was that I never had a headache. Not one.
Is it a common symptom though of brain
Headache?
tumors? Yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
I don't really know.
Absolutely.
Okay.
It's one of the major symptoms. Yeah, I never had one headache through it all.
How you doing?
Mind you, post-surgically, there was a lot of pain in my head, but it wasn't a headache.
Right. That's amazing. Two things. Okay, so again, how does cell phones connect to stress? So does it like alter our nervous system? That's what I want to know.
Yes, it alters the nervous system, and it actually damages the blood cells. I do live blood analysis, and I'm actually the most experienced live blood analyst in Canada. I also teach it. And about 6 years ago now, I was doing live blood analysis at a naturopath's office here in Kelowna, and he had, for some reason, every single patient had red blood cells that were damaged. And initially I thought, this is very strange. He's just got a lot of really sick people with a lot of what we call oxidative stress. And I realized fairly quickly, after about 2 or 3 weeks, that I wasn't seeing this phenomenon in other locations where I was doing live blood analysis. Only his office, he was 120 feet from a cell tower. And he was on the 3rd floor of the building. So the tower was like right there. You could see it from his office, 120 feet away. So the readings in his office on my meters were incredibly high. And the damage to the red blood cells was not occurring in the client. It was occurring in the blood on the microscope.
Oh my gosh.
And so a number of other people have noticed this now and have recorded this what we call oxidative stress damage to the red blood cells.
Yeah.
And it's a significant factor in what we call rapid aging syndrome. Now, I don't know about you, but I don't want to age any more rapidly than I have to.
We are not going to do that here.
Right, exactly.
We're the other way.
Yeah, exactly. We want to go the other way. So rapid aging syndrome was coined by Dr. Magda Havas in Ontario, who's a very good friend of mine, one of the world's top experts in this field. And actually, she was a patient of mine when I practiced there. And so she coined this term a few years ago now, because it's something that we see in a lot of people. And these are people that look older than they really should. You know, and the same thing happens to smokers.
Yeah.
Smoking ages people quicker because it's highly oxidative, and the toxins in it is 1,385 chemicals in cigarette smoke, and they cause significant damage in the body, and they age people faster. So the unfortunate thing is that these do exactly the same thing. So there are 2 very important words in the world of electromagnetic radiation. The first word is proximity.
Okay.
That means how close you are to the source. So if you're holding a phone here, you're not getting nearly as much damage to your body as if you're doing this. This is absolutely deadly.
Right.
And it's the same with a cell tower. If you live 120 feet from a cell tower, you're going to have a lot more damage than if you live, 2 miles away.
Okay, so proximity, yeah.
So when the first thing I do with an inspection is to look up their location on a cell tower map that shows me where all the towers are. And if they're too close to a cell tower, I won't even do their inspection. I don't want them to spend the money on something that is meaningless, because I simply say to them, you need to sell your house and move to a location that is safer. So if they're far enough from the cell towers and hotspots, Wi-Fi hotspots and that sort of thing, then I will go and do the inspection. And so
we were lucky enough because I saw the map and you showed us exactly where they were, so we were fortunate that they were farther away. But again, that was years ago. You know, we need to reevaluate where are they now, because I know that
Yeah.
there's some extra towers being built, and we need to be constantly checking in. Okay, this is called preventative, and looking at, and you know, reaching out to Dr. Ross, who could help.
Well, Safe Zone is now doing annual inspections, and they're not expensive. And a lot of my clients are having an annual inspection. And the reason is you don't know if a tower's gone up. You don't know if the neighbors have put in a Wi-Fi amplifier, which a lot of people are doing.
Yeah.
And that will, you know, you can now walk 2 blocks down the street and still use your Wi-Fi. It's that powerful. And that exposes your neighbor to it.
Yeah.
So a lot of things are happening, and people are upgrading and changing the system. So we do annual upgrades now for people, and
That's
they
really
really
important.
appreciate it because they know they're still safe. And we double check everything we've done in the house and make sure that they haven't, you know, the tenant downstairs isn't blasting them. There's a lot of things that can happen that people don't have control over, and we make sure that they're still safe.
Yeah, so again, this is all about how these electromagnetic frequencies cause stress. And it's oxidative stress that ages us very quickly. So we don't want to like age quickly. We need to reverse this. This is one of the ways that we can do this, all right? So Dr. Ross talked about some of the science around that. And so I'm just going to share 3 practical tips that I learned for my family and what I do when it comes to cell phone and mitigating stress. So the first thing that I do is I work out of my office, and I have an online consulting business, so I'm doing Zoom calls all day or on my computer. But what I do is I actually physically take a break. I leave the house without my phone, and I go for a walk. And I just basically, if I can go on my lawn, I'll take my shoes off and just remove those, you know, oxidative stress out of my body into the earth, because really that's what you're doing, is you're removing those frequencies out of your body and it's going into the ground, and I'm getting the sunlight, so I'm actually re-energizing my body and putting it back to baseline. So I'm taking breaks from my computer and going outside. So that's one thing I do. The other thing I do is we have this no phone at the table rule for our family. So we have family dinners every night to the best that we can. Sometimes we can't, but for most times we do. And the rule is we put the phone away from the table, and we actually have human conversation, because studies have shown that when you put the phone on the table, and even if you're not using it, you're always thinking about your phone, and you're actually not connecting to, as a person, to the next person. So we need to put the phones away from family dinners or eating time. And the other thing I do is, like Dr. Ross said, I put it on speakerphone, and I actually talk this way. And I teach my kids that too. And so this keeps it away from my head. So those are the 3 things that I do to mitigate the stress. And now we're going to actually move into how cell phones make us crave sugar. Yes, they do. They make us overeat. So I want Dr. Ross to talk a little bit about that, how it affects our appetite.
Well, there are a number of connections that can be involved with that. Cell phone radiation, depending on the frequency, will stimulate the growth of certain organisms in the body, specifically yeast and fungus and mold and that sort of thing, that a lot of people have in their bodies. We see it in the live blood analysis quite dramatically. So there is a significant connection between certain frequencies and stimulated growth of these microorganisms. Now, problem with yeast and fungus, they eat sugar. So when you eat sugar, you feed them, and their goal is to get more food so they can grow bigger. And so they're going to eat the sugar that you would get, drop your blood sugar, now you crave sugar. I mean, they're actually pretty smart in doing this. And so a lot of people are running on what we call sugar highs all the time, and they constantly crave sugar, and they eat sugar, and then their sugar drops, and they eat more sugar, and they put on weight. They drink alcohol, you know, they put sugar in their coffee, they eat chocolate bars, and they suck on lozenges. I mean, it just gets, you know, really, really bad. And there are other foods too. White potatoes, for instance, turn into sugar within 15 minutes in your body. And so they are what we call high glycemic foods. There are many of them that turn into sugar very quickly. And
With white potatoes that are cold don't do that. It's only the hot ones.
okay.
Yeah. I just thought I'd throw that out there. So cold, they actually, they have a different effect in the body, and they actually support good gut function. But go ahead.
So there is a significant connection between frequencies emitted by these devices and certain disease forms. And those connections can be with microorganisms and with other various forms of connection. We are frequency beings, you know, but the frequencies that we run on are very low, gentle frequencies. The high frequencies that we're being exposed to now are in complete disharmony with what our body actually runs on and craves.
Yeah, so that's interesting. So for me, knowing this as well, what I do is when I'm consuming foods, I never have a phone there. Because if you are, you're not really paying attention to what you're eating. You're just watching a phone. So your brain doesn't register when you're hungry or full. So that's the first thing I do as a practical tip. The other thing I do is on my phone, I install Flux, F-L-U-X. And what it does, it actually changes the light frequency on your phone so that it's not telling your body that it's 12 o'clock during the day all the time. Because if your body sends a signal from your phone that it's 12 o'clock all the time, you're actually going to crave carbohydrates and sugar. So when you install these kind of apps or software like Flux, F-L-U-X on your phone, it will actually mimic the natural lighting of the outside. Because again, if it's just that blue light, your body thinks it's 12 o'clock and you crave carbs and sugar. On my computer, I install a software called Iris, I-R-I-S. And so you install it and it changes the lighting on your computer so it's not the blue light telling you it's 12 o'clock craving sugar. It actually mimics the natural light. So those are the ways that I actually biohack this. The last thing I do is I practice the art of what we call unplugging. So that means putting the phone away as much as I can when I don't need it, so that I'm allowing the natural frequencies to talk to my cells and tell my body what time of day it is and what's going on. But if we're always exposed to these frequencies that are non-native to our body, we will be stressed, we will crave sugar, all these things. So that's kind of the things that I do.
That's quite fabulous.
Thanks, Dr. Ross.
Doing great.
Thank you. Well, because I'm learning from you. So the other thing we're going to talk about is, this is a big one, how our cell phones disrupt our deep beauty sleep. We need our beauty sleep to wake up looking slim, strong, and sexy, and it's disrupting it. So we need to listen to Dr. Ross and the science behind that.
Well, there are a number of aspects to sleep. One of the biggest concerns that Safe Zone has in the health of clients is sleep, because without sleep we simply can't be healthy. It's just not possible. Our immune system is a mess. It gets depressed, and everybody knows what it's like to miss a night's sleep. You just don't feel well.
Right.
So, interestingly enough, I'm only at the current time sleeping 5 or 6 hours a night, but I don't need any more than that, because the quality of my sleep is so incredible that my brain will detoxify and regenerate in that period of time as opposed to 7 or 8 hours. Okay, and it's because I have no electric fields, no radio frequency fields, no magnetic fields in my sleep space. I've just completely eliminated them. And so I can get by on way less sleep than I used to.
Wow.
But cell phones, what they do, you see, there's this mechanism, and it's something called melatonin, which a lot of people know about and a lot of people take. They don't know what it is, but it's actually a hormone produced by the pineal gland, which is in the very center of our brain. It's about the size of a pea. And melatonin is produced to allow us to sleep. And so that's why when we actually need more sleep in the winter, because it's darker out earlier, and that's the whole principle behind daylight savings time and all that. But melatonin is produced by the pineal gland when it gets dark out. The problem is radio frequency radiation from a smartphone is interpreted by the brain as light. And so consequently, the brain will not produce the melatonin it needs to allow us to sleep if we use this thing in the evening, because radio frequency radiation travels at the speed of light, even though it's not light. Our brain interprets it as light. And so we will not get the melatonin production, and we will not get to sleep or if we do get to sleep, we won't stay asleep. And this is what a lot of people suffer from.
Did you hear that? If you do get to sleep, you can't stay asleep. So if you're suffering from that, really pay attention to this show, because we're going to give you some practical tips where you can get to sleep and stay asleep.
One of the biggest and most important practical tips is something called electric fields. And electric fields are measured by this little guy here, which isn't very big, but costs a lot of money. Pushing $3,000 for that one, German state-of-the-art technology. But electric fields are something that virtually everybody is exposed to, and the reasons are simple. We put the head of the bed against the wall. Well, what's in the wall? Electrical wiring. What's at the head of the bed in most modern homes? A plug on each side for reading lamps.
Yeah, that's true.
Okay, and so consequently, most of the people's sleeping spaces are polluted, and that's the only word I can use, by electric fields that contain toxic frequencies and toxic fields. So one of the simplest things that people can do is to turn off the electrical power in their bedroom. And yes, a beautiful dragonfly.
I love
so it's really ridiculously simple to do, and it is done at the circuit breaker box, or an electrician installs what we call a kill switch, which is a switch to the electrical feed to the electrical plugs in the bedroom. And the new homes that I act as a consultant on for ground up builds, which I've done a number of now, and these places are incredible to live in, and are worth a lot more money on resale than you could possibly imagine, because they're safe zone houses. So the electrician will actually put in a second switch. So there's a switch for the lights and a switch for the electricity running to the electrical plugs in the bedroom. And so my one client has 3 teenagers, and they each have a kill switch. And the house was built from the ground up as a safe zone house up in East Kelowna. And when these kids go to bed, they turn off the light and they turn off the electrical energy to the receptacles in their bedroom. And these kids are incredible. They study better, they feel better, they're more emotionally balanced. I mean, these kids are incredible when you meet them. They're amazing children because they're not exposed to all of this, pollution that we can't see, smell, or taste.
Yeah, and so one thing to point out is when children, they're not fully developed till they're actually 22. So the younger they are, the more damaging it is for them, because their brains are porous and it affects them more. That's actually why I hired Dr. Ross, because when I hired Dr. Ross years ago, my children were a lot younger, and I knew that about this brain and how they're affected by these frequencies. And so when Dr. Ross came in, I felt so comforted to know that my house had the right frequencies native to us, so that our kids and our bodies were safe in our home. So we need to create safe homes. Our home needs to be our sanctuary. We need to create a wellness home. And that's going to be the next few years. I'm actually going to be teaching more about creating a wellness kitchen and a wellness home. And a large part of this, it's about making sure that frequencies in your home are native to your body, so that you don't get stressed, so that you don't crave these sugars, so that you get your best sleep, so that everything works properly. We must remember this. Thanks for sharing. So that's really good. So I'm going to give some practical tips right now to get your best sleep. Okay, so the first thing that I recommend is we need to make melatonin to release it at night. Well, you're going to make melatonin by going outside. You're not going to make melatonin without doing that. So what do? I always, myself and all my clients know this. We get outside first thing in the morning to, first of all, signal to the pineal gland, allow the rays to enter our eyes, so glasses up to allow the frequency to enter our eye clock, they call it, trigger the pineal gland to make melatonin. But guess what? It takes 12 hours to fully make melatonin to then release it at night. So you have to back that up. What time do you go to bed? Well, it's going to take you 12 hours to make the sleep hormone. So you got to make it first. So you get outside and get the morning sunlight, all right? The actual science shows that before 10 a.m., if you're out for 20 minutes and get the natural sunlight, you will ensure a much better quality sleep. So again, let's get these sunglasses off our faces. I'm sorry, but I need a billboard out there that says, let's go back to our natural way of living, and that is not by putting sunglasses on. If you think about planting a tree in organic soil, you're outside, you're planting the tree, you've got this gorgeous organic soil, and then what happens is you put a tarp over it, And you say, well, grow. It's not going to grow. It needs the sunlight. The sunlight is a vitamin for us, okay? And it also makes the melatonin. So let's get these sunglasses off our face. And if you have a really hard time with not wearing sunglasses, that means that you need to train the body not to wear them. Because remember, we're from the earth. We're from the sun, all right? We're from nature. If we move away from that, we look artificial and we feel artificial. So when you take your sunglasses off, and if you can't really handle that, what I want you to do is put a hat on to avoid the glare and train your eyes and your body to couple yourself with the environment without something that's going to stop you from being healthy, okay? So that's the first thing I want you to do. Second thing that I want you to do is create a sleep ritual. What that means is create a ritual that trains your brain, oh, it's time for sleep. It's not like I'm looking at a screen and then, oh, it's time for bed, go to sleep. No, your brain hasn't registered. It still thinks it's 12 o'clock during the day. And you're wondering why you can't sleep. So I fell prey of that. Now I understand. So what we do is as the sun goes down, we need to dim our lights. And when the sun goes away, we need to dim our lights and keep them low. Put salt candles on. Keep the lights low. I like candles, and thanks to Carla from the Kelowna Candle Factory, I'm one of her best customers because I use a lot of these, and I put salt lamps on. The other thing that we do is if you need to be on the computer or your cell phone, don't worry, we got you covered. We're going to use what we call blue light blocking glasses. So I call these my sexy blue light blocking glasses because a lot of them, they're not sexy. And these ones I feel pretty good in. I
think they're sexy.
Thank you. So thank you. So yeah, these are the ones that I wear at night. And what they do is they actually block the blue light emitting from your cell phone. So my body still thinks that it can make melatonin. So this is what we use. So you want to invest in a pair of blue light blocking glasses, and don't invest in the cheap ones because you're not going to get results. There are some really good brands. And if you're looking at getting this, just send me a comment and I can send you the brands that I've found to be efficacious. So we want to wear blue light blocking glasses, but not the yucky ones. You want to get the sexy ones. You also want to get your kids on them as well. And remember, we want to teach our children this information. And the last thing we do is, thanks to Dr. Ross, I learned a lot from you. What we do at night is we shut the breaker off. Yeah. So we shut the breaker off and we shut all the electricity off in our bedrooms. And you will notice that when you do, it's like you're camping. You know how well you sleep when you're camping? That's what we want to mimic. We want to mimic a night's sleep like you're camping. That's shutting the breaker off, which is the Wi-Fi and the electricity to your room. Try it. Get a hold of me. I want to hear your story about how you feel, because that's what we do.
I do want to make a comment there that
Please.
That's not always the simplest process.
Okay.
It may entail more than one breaker. If the bathroom is on the other side of the wall from the head of the bed, and sometimes if the head of the bed is on an outside wall and there's electrical running to outside plugs, you might have to turn other breakers off. That's why it's very important to have somebody who understands all this do an inspection. It's not always as simple as it would seem.
Okay. Thanks for sharing, but see, I knew that only because Dr. Ross actually showed me the exact breakers to shut off, and he tested it. So if this interests you, which I hope it does, reach out to Dr. Ross so he can actually set you in the right direction, because he did for us.
And I want to say too, at this point, that it's very important to have a professional inspection done. If Uncle Bob wants to come over because he bought a meter and he watched a couple of YouTubes and he thinks he can do an inspection with 1 meter or even 2 meters, okay, that's very dangerous. I have 15 meters. I have $15,000 worth of meters. I generally use about $10,000 worth. This one is pushing $3,000 just for that meter alone. But a lot of people will buy a meter and it'll be a $200 or $300 meter, and you get what you pay for in meters. And it's very dangerous to have somebody over that thinks they can inspect your home. They don't have, I mean, I've inspected over 1,000 homes. And I've been doing this since the mid-1980s. It's a massive amount of experience, and you need somebody who is properly qualified, properly trained, and has experience. in this field in order to have it done properly. It's very important that you not have your Uncle Bob come over or your friend Rick who, got a meter and decided he wants to check your home. Sure, have him over, but then get a proper inspection done.
I highly recommend an inspection for the ones that want to dive deeper. But we also have given them practical tips they can start with today.
Absolutely.
Which is, I would say the first one is don't put it by your head. Would that be one of the first ones?
But also get a shielded case. I mean, I saw you've got shielded cases here.
Yeah, so
right?
we have this, and it's called Safe Sleeve. Safe Sleeve. And so what it does is we put our phone in here, and we in its phone case. So this blocks the EMF for myself and all my children as well, and my husband. So this is what you want to do, safe sleep. So that's also a really good idea.
I just got this phone, and my shielded case is on order. It should be in next week. This is such a new phone; they didn't even have a case for it yet.
Yeah, so we want to keep the phone away from our head. We want to have shields, right? We want to do what we call unplugging. So
do not charge the phone on your bedside table. That is a real nasty thing to do, because people generally a lot of people will put it charging on their bedside table. Well, every 3 to 6 minutes these things are updating all their information, your weather and your email and all the other stuff, and they give out a massive blast of radiation, which I've measured and documented. And that's why we have a whole generation of people who are having problems reproducing now, because the guys keep the phone in their front pocket, and it's this far from the boys. And the girls keep that phone in their back pocket, and it's this far from the ovaries.
Or the breasts, actually. They place it in their breasts, and I want to talk to them, but I don't.
That's why that shielded case is a very important item.
It is. So the shielded case, the phone away from the head. And here's the other thing, is we keep it's electronic free. So my bedroom, there's no TV, no phones in there. It's just a place for sleep and sex, really. That's what it's for. But we don't want to have a telephone. We don't want to have those kind of devices in our room. All right. So just keep the bedroom what it's used for. Keep the electronics in its own electronic room. So that's another tip. So these are tips that will really help you. And if you want to dive deeper, obviously you would hire the expert, which is Dr. Ross. So I just want to end this with...
I just want to say one thing.
Yeah.
I am not going to be doing the inspections anymore.
Okay. So...
I am currently training an incredible top-tier electrician who's working with me now.
Okay.
And he is just about fully trained, and he will be as good or better than I ever was.
Okay, so he can direct you to the right person.
I'm going to be doing strictly research, education, and product development. I'm developing a number of shielding products which are quite unique and are based on scientific research and are going to be protecting people when they're out and about and in their homes as well.
Oh my gosh. So you really need to connect with Dr. Ross, because he actually is training somebody to do what he's been doing, but then he's going to do the other stuff like research and that sort of thing. And there are actually a few nutrients that have been shown to help with this oxidative stress, which raises when we're on these cell phones. So the first one is magnesium. So you can take a magnesium supplement, because what it does is it acts as a natural calcium channel blocker, and so it helps to regulate calcium magnesium in the right balance. And so a really good amount would be somewhere between 400 to 600 milligrams per day. I like to divide it into morning and night, because your energy system actually needs magnesium to increase your energy, and also you need it to relax to sleep. So you want to divide it between twice a day. The other supplement you can take or look for is NRF2. And what NRF2 is, actually this pathway that helps our bodies raise its glutathione levels, which are our own internal antioxidants, to again fight the free radicals, quench this oxidative stress. So you can take a supplement, or you can eat cruciferous vegetables like broccoli and cauliflower and kale and Brussels sprouts. You can eat more, and cabbage. Love cabbage like borscht. So eat more of these foods. You're going to upregulate this mechanism to increase your own antioxidants. You could also do intermittent fasting. That also increases the NRF2 pathway. And the other one is, I've got it here, exercise. Exercise does the same thing. So you want to exercise, intermittent fasting, and
every day.
Every day.
And it helps us sleep so much when you get out and work out and get out on the bike or hike. Jogging is okay if you got the right shoes, but exercise, absolutely.
Everybody needs to do it every day. And the third one is to incorporate these specific spices into your daily diet. So what they do is they're rich in polyphenols, and they are specifically cinnamon, cloves, garlic, rosemary, turmeric, and ginger. So those are the ones that have been shown to really help with this oxidative stress, raise the antioxidants. They're full of these polyphenolic compounds, which are really helpful for when you're exposing yourself to your phones and that, so it'll mitigate that. So I hope that you've learned a lot today. This has been enlightening for me. I learned a lot from Dr. Ross. He's amazing. So how can people get a hold of you?
The best way is by email or phone, and the email that I'm currently using is 5G Safe Zone.
5G Safe Zone. So I will put it in the show notes.
At gmail.com.
At gmail.com.
And the phone number is 778.
778.
I'm going to give my computer phone. 800.
Oh, 1-800?
No. 778.
778 800
800 9604.
9604. Okay, you're going to get a lot of calls.
And leave a message if you don't get through, because that's a computer phone. I only answer it when I'm home. So
Okay, you heard it from the
leave a
doc.
message and I will get back to you. I do phone consultations regularly. A lot of challenges can be sorted out over the phone. But an on-site inspection is advised.
It is, absolutely, and I attest to that. And so for me, if anyone's looking at a nutrition and lifestyle plan that will help to reduce the stress, stop the sugar cravings, and get you sleeping better, and really get your body and health back, that's exactly what I do. I create plans, and they're online, so just get a hold of me, askmichelle@gmail.com, or send me a comment, and I'd be happy to share what I can do for you, all online. Okay, well, thank you so much. What's this? Are we going to be talking about that?
If you want, yeah, this
Okay.
it's a little miracle.
We have a little miracle here.
It's a little miracle. Can we see it on there?
I'm going to see if I can move this.
Sure.
Yeah. Okay.
You might have to tilt it down a bit.
All right. I'm going to hang on to this.
It's a good idea.
So just hang on tight, everyone.
Okay, so
Okay.
I'm gonna spin it clockwise. And it spins nice and freely and stops. Now I'm gonna spin it counterclockwise. And you'll notice that it doesn't like going that direction at all. It stops a lot quicker. Usually reverses itself, but this glass surface is a little rough.
So what does that tell us?
Well, this thing is actually, this is a very interesting piece. It's actually the exact geometrical representation of the ark with the dimensions taken directly out of the Bible. And I'm not a biblical person a lot, but it's quite a remarkable piece in that it actually somehow, the shape of it, hooks up to the spin of the planet. And it will do the opposite of this. When you spin it counterclockwise, it decides to shake, and it stops very quickly and usually reverses itself.
So what do we learn from that?
Yeah, there, it's actually reversed itself. And it goes back to spinning clockwise.
So what's the
Well,
practical aspect?
The bottom line for this is that there are forces, energetic forces, acting on us that we cannot see, smell, or taste.
There we go.
And that's part of the whole energetic thing with electromagnetic radiation. This is not electromagnetic. This is actually kinetic energy of the spin of the Earth that this hooks up to. And don't ask me how. I don't know how. I just have had this for over 40 years. And it's interesting because I just got a connection, and we are going to, you cannot buy these anymore. I've had this for over 40 years and you can't get them anymore, but I am not going to be making them available. I just got hooked up with a rock carver in India who has made one of these out of tourmaline. So very shortly on my website, these will be available, and they'll be available from virtually any stone that can be carved, which will be a lot of different stones. So it's a really interesting piece that a lot of, and every time I show it to people, they want one. So now they're going to be able to get one because I'm actually having them reproduced. They won't be cheap though.
Thanks for sharing, and I just want to say welcome to, thanks for joining, and please share this with others, and if you find it interesting, let us know if you like it, not like it, let me know what you want to see on the show, and we'll see you next week on Wellness Wednesdays with Michelle. Thanks for joining.